So with the new Sonic movie coming out, I thought I would bring up something that has kind of been an infrequent, albeit still existing discussion in the EarthBound fandom for a long time, and that is, could EarthBound or any of the Mother games work in the form of a film adaptation? I hate to be this guy, but guys, I'm sorry, I just don't think so. My main reasons are that EarthBound's just way too big of a story. For one thing, if it was a film, it would have to be a series of films. We're talking Harry Potter-sized franchise here. And while we're on the topic of other adaptations, the main characters of the game hardly have any personality. I love all these characters near and dear to my heart, but you hardly know anything about them. And the only real characterization we get for Ness is Magicant, which is designed so specifically to be told in the medium of a video game. Sure, silent protagonists have existed in cartoons and such, but not for a series the length of, Lord of the Rings. I think that's really my main point here, is that the story of EarthBound is designed to be experienced in the form of a video game. Itoi's an artist, and he knew that this was the medium he had to tell this kind of story. There's only so many times in a movie you can see an action scene, and in EarthBound you're fighting things all the time. I think at best what it would have to be in the form of any sort of medium that's not a video game, maybe an anime or some sort of animated television program. I really can't think of anything else. And even then, it really just wouldn't be able to do justice, because this would have to be oh goodness. Who knows how long this show would go on, because there's nothing directly to adapt it from. I guess you could adapt it from the Pollyanna comic, but at that point, you're not really adapting the video game, you're just adapting something else, From a budgetary perspective, think about how many movies and things you would have to hire this Ness actor for, and he never says anything. Now, I know the next obvious step is to say, well, Ness doesn't have to be a silent protagonist. And to that I agree, but I also counteract with the point, everybody would hate that. Ness has a very intentionally simple design. Even if you don't look like him, which most of the people who've played as Ness definitely don't, he's simple enough to where you can project yourself into him, and that's the whole point. That's the whole reason you can name him. That's the whole reason you can name everything. Your favorite thing. Think about it. Outside of Magicant, the only canonical thing we know about Ness's personality is he likes rockin', and that's not even consistent. I'm sorry, I just don't think EarthBound can be a movie, without changing a lot of things at least. Well, what about EarthBound Beginnings? Maybe. Again, you'd have to change quite a bit of things, but EarthBound Beginnings is much simpler at least. In EarthBound, you're running here, there, going back here, going back there, flying to this new place. It's a real roundabout. Itoi himself even called them road trip movies. I guess of all the games, though, this is the one that you could most realistically condense into one film. The problem would be that you are still introducing a lot of characters very late into the story. And then there's Mother 3, which I guess of all the games is actually the most apt to possibly be a movie. Mother 3 is drastically more cinematic than the previous two games. Not to suggest that the others aren't at all, but you got my point. And the major fact that Lucas has a much more personal stake in his story than the others do. The others are kind of just chosen ones, and that doesn't downplay their importance or the emotional connection you may have had to them. But talking from a strictly narrative perspective, Lucas is the only one who really has something to gain or seriously lose from this on a personal, deeper level. There's a ton of pages on the internet that allege Itoi was approached about adapting Mother 3 into a book or movie after it was canceled, but I really can't find a source for this. Although it certainly would have been interesting. It hurts me to say this because as a kid, there was really nothing more I wanted than a Mother 3 movie. I wanted to make the Mother 3 movie. And something I've had a real difficult time coming to grips with, particularly in the last year, is knowing a film adaptation of these things just would never match the originals. I said it before, but I'll say it again. These stories are designed to be told through the medium of video games. I think that's why they connect to people on such an emotional level at points. I think people forget that video games are their own medium and that you can tell stories through gameplay. How did it make you feel the first time you played EarthBound and all of your attacks just stopped working on Gygas? And then just out of nowhere you decided, I'm gonna hit Prey instead. And then you see your name that you typed in yourself. How about in EarthBound Beginnings when it was your 6th time fighting Gyug and you couldn't beat him still, and then all of a sudden you tried the sing option? Or when you try to attack as Lucas and it says he won't. Sure, you can always show these things happening, but that's not telling a story. Telling a story is when you push that button and the character you've controlled the entire game refuses to do what you say. And when you finally do, they cry. I think these are many of the reasons that these games have stuck with so many people through so many years, decades even. For the fact that they not only use the medium, they evolve it into something deeper. And I think that's even why so many video games have tried to replicate EarthBound. The quirky EarthBound-inspired RPG isn't always a lazy reskin. It's someone trying to create that same emotional connection that EarthBound did for them, for you, through the same way it happened to them. That's the evolution of art. There was a long time when movies weren't even considered art. They were considered more or less filmed plays. And it wasn't until you had those people pushing the boundaries of what film can do that other mediums can't, that it was finally respected as its own form. When you do something unique with the art form you're using that other things can't, that's how you know you're in control as the artist. How you know that you're using the right medium to tell your story.